Welcome to this recording of a NMRA-PCR Coast Division clinic on printing walls for building interiors. I actually put this together because this was something I did, and after I did it, I decided it probably would be interesting. So this is a DPM resin and Eleanor's house kit on an ON30 module. The track's at 48 inches. It's a model of the Mission Hill Tunnel in Santa Cruz. And the tunnel it goes through the hill, and on top of the hill is the church, which is the right. You really can't see it. And I put this house up there, Victorian houses up there. It's kind of a bit of a proto-Lansing of the area. The problem is that literally, if you are 5'6", when you stand here, you're looking into the building. And because it's a module, you're never more than a foot away. And if you lean in, you can get 4 or 5 inches away from the windows. So it really needed an interior, and the details are going to be very visible. So this is actually what I did. This is actually the interior of the building. The furniture is doll kit furniture. There's a figure there. It's 148, so you can do that. But all of the walls were all printed as a single print, cut and just glued on the walls. And if you look at this in the big room here, the big area in the front is actually treated as a single room where the walls were printed and glued on the outside on the resin. And then that center wall, if you look, you can actually see that's just a piece of balsa with 2 pieces of wood glued on the sides. But everything you see inside, there are some of those doily curtains on some of the windows, but everything else is actually just printed on the walls. So literally doing this entire interior took about 2 or 3 hours. It really wasn't that big a deal. So the thing that's interesting about this is if you think about a model, when you look in these windows, if there's an object on the wall over here, where this blue object is, which would be something on the wall, your viewing angle is so narrow that you can't see depth. So everything being flat actually works well. What I actually figured out after I did this when it was all done was, oh, there's a shadow feature in PowerPoint. I'll show you how you can use that. So you can actually produce shadows if you want to. If you've got lighting, you want to make it look like there's shadows. So the way this works is really simple. You just scan the model as a JPEG or PNG file on your scanner before you assemble it. So what you're seeing here on the right is actually what was on the scanner bed. So literally took the parts, put them flat down, inside down on the scanner, so it scanned the inside walls. So if you look at these 3 walls, this is where they actually sit on the module. But I now have them in a scan in the computer. So I actually have the interior of the building now, and I can make it a set of templates. So that's what I did next. So basically, I brought those scanned images into PowerPoint. I use PowerPoint, which is the same thing you're watching these slides in, because it turns out it's actually a drawing package masquerading as a slide package. You can actually treat a sheet of paper as an 8.5 by 11 drawing space, and you can scale all the objects on it. So basically what I did was imported it in and actually stuck it into this space. And so once you've done that, you can now create a box. So this red box here is actually just a square rectangular image in PowerPoint, and I just moved it to the shape of the building where the walls were. And once you've done that, you now have a template. And inside, if you look at this inside, it's actually made just a little bit bigger in the window space, because my intent was to paint the walls before I installed them. Then when you glue the glue in, as long as the paint and the wall kind of match, you'd have a nice interior mullion when you looked across in the building. I'm going to show you how in a second. In PowerPoint, there's a way you can edit points in a rectangle. So basically, I just took a rectangle here, I edited the points, and I added a point and drug it up to create these other points and make this little space here. So basically, that's how you create essentially the template for the walls is created like this. Okay, and by the way, I'm going to pause if there are any questions or about how you do this. So basically, if you look on the bottom left, this is another set, the complete set of walls for the building. Where so there are the 3 walls that were the living room, and then the 4 walls that form the main part of the little house. Okay, so once you've got those in, one comment, and this was experience, you need to reserve a little room on the side of each of these when you do the templates, the interior templates. for when the walls glue together. I actually made them the first time. I made all of my designs the full width, and it turns out that they were actually a little too wide. You actually have to take a little bit off. I did take off enough off the bottom where I put a floor in the building and actually glued the walls to the floor on the sides. So there was a resin floor. You glued the walls together and then put the floor in from the bottom. So as you do that, you basically now, if you think about what we've done, is we've created a template where that template actually represents the walls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop out of this and I'm going to jump over into another presentation. This is actually not a presentation. This is actually the slide deck that I use to build the walls. So I'm going to drop down here and I'm going to actually show you this because I think it's kind of, let me drop way down here. So this slide here, if you look at this slide right here, you'll notice that these red lines here were the template. So basically each one of these is just a square. And I just put it in the template down here in this place. But when you get up here, that now is where the window is going to be. So I started off by saying, well, what if the walls were green? And I decided I really didn't look like that, but I started playing and putting some doors and windows in. But is it clear how you get to this point? Does everyone kind of understand how you get from, the scanner bed to this point where you've got a template? Once you have that, it's really not that hard, just so you understand. So now, let me go up here. You can now begin to put objects into this. So if you look at this object here, the way you find something like that is you go in and you go Victorian wallpaper. And what you do is go look in images. And what you'll find in images is you'll find all these beautiful images of Victorian wallpaper. So, let's say we want to do something fairly fancy. We just pick this one, click once on it, and you now have the image. What you do is go up here and copy it, and that's easy to do by right-clicking, and you hit copy image. And now we can take that image, and we can bring it back in here, and I just pasted it in. So we now have that wallpaper. So let's say I want to use that, but I really don't like that pattern. It's too. So now you just copy, and by the way, CV on a computer is your best friends. C copies whatever's highlighted, V pastes it. So I just hit Control CV, and now I can just bring it up here. I can zoom in. Down here is a zoom control at the bottom right. Zoom in, and I just line the patterns up. So I find a place where they match. And I did it very well there, but I think that's close. And now if I click on both of these, I can either hit Control G and group them, or if you're in the home key, if you go up here, you can group these into a group. And now you can do the same thing, CV again, put them up here, find the match point. And so what I'm using the arrow keys to move these now. But now we can group those again, and we now have essentially created a bigger object that can be our wallpaper. And we can, shrink it down if we want to, and we can say, okay, that wallpaper. And then what I'm going to do here is if you notice, let's shrink this down so it fits on the wall. If I click on the door, if I go up here to arrange, and you just look at these tools, if you've used any computer like this, they're pretty easy. Arrange moves the objects around. So I arrange, bring to front, and now the door is in the front. And so I can move this down and say, okay, this was here. And then let's say you wanted wainscoting. You do the same thing. Go to the internet, go look up here and say Victorian wainscoting. Wainscoting, I guess it is. I'm a terrible typist, by the way.
Nobody else here is one of those.
But so now this is a little different because you're not getting the same kind of images. But if you go down through here, eventually you'll start finding things that are that's an image you can use. But that's basically how you look for things. By the way, the other thing I wanted to show you here was there's a site called textures.com. So if you haven't gone to this site, if you do any of this kind of stuff, textures.com is a great site. You can sign up here. You have to log on. I think I have to log on. Yeah, let me log in. You can log in and you get basically one medium object or a couple of medium objects a day. But, you know, if you look down here and look, so somebody want to do some rusted roofing. You know, let's do some metal roofing. So there are 73 photo sets of metal roofing here. So if you look at this one here, there are 4 images here. So basically, you can download these images. You're getting the small one here, but they're actually, for what we do, very good. And again, you can then take these images and build them into a kind of larger environment if you want to. So I'm going to jump
Phil,
back.
I don't want to interrupt you, Phil, but textures.com is great. I've used that many times for roof texture, and it's terrific.
Absolutely. I'll show you a few pictures later. I actually did a building on the O-scale layout where I grabbed some textures.coms, and I took a piece that in blown up in O-scale would be about this big, and actually built a building about this big just by replicating the panels. You can do some very interesting things with those textures. So basically, what you do is you pick the room out, and you'll notice here, this was the drawing you saw. This is what I ended up with, and you'll notice that I got pictures. So if you saw the process, you go find an image. So then the next thing you want is you want a picture frame. So you go look for pictures that have a picture frame you like. You can take the picture frame and put the image you found inside the picture frame, so you get the images for your location inside the frames you want. So if we go back, I'm going to go back. I'm jumping back and forth here because I want you to see how it's done. Hang on, I'm in the...
Just think of it as a series of layering, right?
Right, exactly. So if you look up here, it is literally just layers. So what I wanted to show you is a couple of walls here. So this wall, this is the wall that on one side is the kitchen, and this is where that divider wall is in the middle, that balsa divider wall I showed you. So this is a kitchen wall, and this is the bedroom wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so you can see what the objects are. So, you know, this is wallpaper. So I'm going to ungroup this so you can see that, you know, each one of these is now a separate group. So you see that piece is there. This piece is here. Now, if you look at this painting, if we go up here, arrange, ungroup. And by the way, if anybody wants, anybody can have this PowerPoint, this thing to start with and play with. What you see is that this was a picture I got of the mission, and this was a picture I found online. And you notice that I actually took 2 of them and used the crop tool. So there's another really cool tool, and these are easy to use, is if you hit the left mouse button on a PC, on an object, you open up this other window here. One of the tools you get is this thing called a crop tool. And what the crop tool does is it lets you shrink or grow the image, what's shown. And so see, what I did was I took this image, I cropped it from 2 dimensions, slid it down until it was a picture frame that was just right. I'm not going to get it perfect, but just right for that picture. So basically, that's how you build up images. And if you look over here, like in the kitchen, I wanted this kind of blue motif. When I was a kid, we had these Danish plates. So that's actually a Danish plate. This is actually what I realized afterwards, is you can put in shape effects. So there's a shadow effect. So you can put a shadow effect that actually puts, so I could have put on all of these a shadow effect. So when you looked in the window, you actually would see a shadow on the wall behind everything. So it's actually a really, you know, if you've ever used these kind of tools, it's actually a pretty easy way to do it. So basically, this is finding patterns. There's a whole bunch of things in here in the presentation about how to do that when you go back. This was textures.com. This is basically the process. I put it in. You've kind of seen this in the presentation. I wanted to put it in there. So you start with the templates on the right. Then you start filling in the templates with objects. Then you generate final prints. Those are all sized at 8.5 by 11. So, you know, I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And then these were the final printouts for the walls. I wanted to put these up, and then Earl had a couple. I was at the PCR convention we had up in Sacramento. Someone, I don't remember who, did a session on using these Costco 60-inch by 20-inch prints for a backdrop. And I needed to build a city for the layout in a full city for the layout in Pleasanton. The O-scale layout there for 20 years had a huge city area, but never had a city. And when I saw that technique, it hit me, gee, if I could print buildings on the paper, you could actually build a city pretty quickly. So basically I went online, found a bunch of buildings. I think I printed 6 prints for this, six of those, or 6 or 7. Basically printed the prints out, cut them out using a hobby knife and a small small square. They were then mounted to masonite. So I just bought basic masonite, glued these to masonite with photo glue, and then those were just mounted with hot glue actually to sticks. And if you look over here on the right, that's actually all those buildings literally screwed on from the back of the benchwork. So between the front row of buildings and the back row, there's a pit there where where you can operate the trolley that runs around up there. So basically they're just mounted there, but the public is constrained to seeing this from about 12 feet away. And it turns out, other than a little bit of shine, it really looks pretty good. But like, if you look at this brick building on the corner here, which is actually just 3 masonite pieces basically locked together with some corner pieces, that literally was about 5 or 6 different prints on textures that were regrouped to build a whole building. So that's kind of how you can do that. So that's kind of the end of what I had. Earl, I think you were going to talk about how you'd use the same techniques.
Quick question, Phil.
Sure.
Would shooting those buildings with an artist flat medium knock the shine down? Without showing
I hit him. I actually tried it. I hit him with it once. I probably should do it again. It knocks it down a little bit. The challenge we have in this club is that we have lights, and they're all LED spotlight or floodlights up on the overhead, and they shine down, and the buildings are up just at enough angle where those are actually hitting and shining back toward the viewers.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yep. But anyway, it's just by the way, using it for backdrops I thought was brilliant. So give it to Earl.
So I just have a short presentation. Phil and I didn't talk about what each person was doing. So this is what I do a lot for HO scale interiors. Sometimes you have an attic or a storefront and you need a picture. So what I do is first come in here and draw a text box. And this is the area that I have to work with. And you can come in here and you do right click and you go to size. So let's say I've got an area that's 1 inch by 3 inches. So and you want to put a line around the outside of it so you can see it. So this is the area that I have to work with that I want to find an image for. So I went on the web, just like Phil did, and found an image. This is a pharmacy interior.
So, quick question, what program are you using?
I'm sorry, I'm using Publisher.
Yeah, so just for everybody, so PowerPoint is a slide production. Publisher is more of a document publication. But the point is exactly the same. If you can create objects on a page, you can now put things in them and print them.
Yeah, and basically the same set of drawing tools are available across the Microsoft Office suite. So if you know how to do it in PowerPoint, you pretty much know how to do it in Publisher, Word, and Excel.
Right.
Right.
And, PowerPoint and Publisher are nice because things don't move. When you start doing it in Word, Word moves things and it messes you up. So what I'm doing here is scaling this down to about the size that I want. And you can, bring this screen over and kind of see how big your image is. And I can zoom that in and we can play with all. So that's how I do the interiors. Then like Phil was showing, you can come in here, crop it, get rid of what you don't need. And
For
then
those
just,
of you who are really cheap like me, Apache OpenOffice, which is free, has the same apps.
Yeah, by the way, no endorsement of apps here. Literally, if you can find a drawing tool and create an 8.5 by 11 page in it, and you can scale things, you can use it to print stuff that's pretty cool.
the other thing is this little orange box over here and I'll get zoomed in again. This is 6 foot tall in HO. So if you're worried about, is what you have kind of in scale, you just create a box that's 6 feet tall and you can put it in here and see if it's going to scale properly.
Yeah.
Back to you, Phil.
That's a great idea, Earl.
I was just going to show. So by the way, if you're in PowerPoint, if you use PowerPoint for any of these things, if you go up, one thing to do is go to the design bar. And on the design bar, you can pick your slide size. And so if you notice, what I've done is I've actually made, this is a widescreen size, but if we go over to the other presentation, the one that's actually the printed interiors, first thing I do is I go over to slide and change it from a slideshow. You change this to letter paper. So when you pull this list down for the size, so it's design, slide size, you want to select letter paper, and then it scales it to letter. And the other thing that you also can do on all these programs is if you come down here to like this door and you say, okay, I want to see what size that door is. If you click on it and you go up here, it says size and position. This again in Microsoft, you always look for these things. They always say the same things. Great comment. If you do that, it opens up the size of the object over here. And so you got the same thing. You got the measurement of the object and you can rotate it. One of the nice things is you can scale it. So if you bring 5 things over and you want to maintain the scale, you can scale them all by 50% and they'll all get half the size. The other thing you can do that when you play with these things, if you put a square here like this, the square is actually a series of points. So if you want to, you can change those points and then do it the same way. You right click on it. When you right click on it, it opens up this toolbar and you notice there's a point there that says edit points. So any object is actually just points. So if you look at that, because I had edit points, you see those 4 black dots are points, and each one of these points, if you click on it, is actually 2 little arms. And by the way, does anybody know what that looks like? Looks an awful lot like a graduated curve on a layout. And in fact, it's a great tool. I'll show you how you can do a track for a layout real quickly. So you take and you put a line. If you want to do it, a module, all my module drawings are done in PowerPoint. You do a line. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here in this tool and I'm going to look at the line. And you notice the line over here is 0.5 points wide. But if you look, there's a compound type. And I can make this line a double line. And if I make it 6 points, actually I use 5.5, it turns out, and I make it black, turns out that starts to look a lot like a railroad track. And like I said, if you take a really simple object up here, so they have a whole bunch of objects you can use, but you can grab a tool that right here that makes basically a polygon, a free-form shape. And what you can do is you can go like this. Oh, hang on, I didn't do that right. We'll use that, it's okay. So if I made that, that's a shape. But what it really is it was really 3 points. So you notice I'm going to go grab this point up here and I'm just going to move it down here. But what's really interesting about these points are that if I go to one of these, if I move this one over here, I can take this one and go like this, and I can take this one and go like this, and I'm actually starting to create graduated curves. And again, if I come over here and I go like this, and I make this 5.5, that starts to look again a lot like a track. And so, you can start using these tools. You can do lots of really interesting drawings with these things. Just play with them a little bit. And, if you have Office 365, one of the open things, you have these tools on your computer already. So, well, that was it for me. I'm done.
Well, that was awesome.
Looks like it's just
That was an awesome presentation,
yeah, it's
Phil.
just a way of it's just a way of using what you have very creatively. I think you did a good job, Phil.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think it's a great tool. And by the way, scanner, so, if you guys are, I'm not sharing, so let me pull something up. I'll pull up one drawing here and show you what you can do, some of the other things you can do with it.
Bill, that was a great presentation. I've been using PowerPoint and Publisher for quite a while, and I learned a couple things today.
Well, that's good.
One thing I'm doing on markups, like when I do my building markups, I go and take the titchy windows that I'm going to be using and put them on the scanner bed, scan it, print it,
Yep.
and cut it out and put it on the markup.
Yep. So I'm going to share again. This is here, let me share it. I'll show you guys the so when I do a module design, I actually use the same tools. So this is, if you go down here, you can't actually, I don't think I'm going very fast, but like this is, as I was going through designs, you can just repeat things very easily. And all of these things are just objects. So like you saw this is a switch. This is actually grabbed off of the internet, though I actually scanned some of the switches the same way. So if you notice this one here, that's a Fast Tracks template. So if you go to the Fast Track site, they have templates. The templates are PDFs. You can download the PDF and then you can copy it and paste it and scale it into these kind of packages. So this is an accurately scaled, this is 1 inch and equals 1 foot on this drawing. So it's a 8.5 by 11 page. So you can put an 8-foot module across it or a 10-foot module across it. But this one here, if you look at this switch here, that's actually scanned. That actually, I took the switch and I put it upside down on the scanner bed and scanned it and then imported it and scaled it. But it becomes really easy to create these objects and just put them into a drawing. And everything that's here is just a series of things you can put together. And then I do the same thing for, like, these are all building mock-ups. And so again, the same, if you just look at this, they're just a series of pieces of, you just take that out. That was a piece that was designed to fill in. These are roof pieces. Again, those are grouped together. The way that's done is you make one and you decide the angle of your roof. By the way, we want to know what the angle of the roof is. We go over and do size and position. Always remember size and position. Boom, it's 246 degrees. I don't know what normal was. We'd have to figure out. So if we put it to 0, 270, so it was 14 degrees. That's a 14-degree roof angle. Again, CV, we're in CV. Just try doing, next time you're in any of these things, hit Control CV. That copied it. Always, if you want to arrange anything, you click on Arrange. Look for the word Arrange. If you notice, it says Rotate Horizontal. Notice it just went horizontal. And now I can just take this piece and put it up here with this piece. And now I put those together, hit Control G to group them, or you can group them under Arrange. And that's how you create that piece there. And I just kind of align it on there. And then somewhere I had the other piece that I put. That's literally how long, once you get a few objects together, you can build stuff really quickly. And it lets you really do, like the mock-ups you're doing, you almost do the whole mock-up this way and print out and 8 out. Like a mock-up of a building could be built, and even if it's bigger than the 11 inches, you can then break it and print it on 2 sheets, print those out, and just glue those on your mock-up. When I do my mock-ups, that's what I'm planning on doing, is doing it that way. Yep.
This is one of my mock-ups.
Yep. It's cool.
Very nice.
You know, and it's so important because, you know, I think especially for folks that have this duality of building a layout and wanting scenery, but also wanting to have something that they can operate on. A lot of folks end up in a situation where, you know, you get the basics of the layout, but structures and that become a longer term, you know, project activity. This is a great way to, probably a great way to generate mock-ups that might be good enough. Combine it with the paper building techniques that are really good.